So let's start by taking a peek at this. Good day. And what we're going to do, and there's going to be something very similar to this on your final. Let's see if we can get this guy focused. I don't think so. What we're attempting to do here is we've talked, great length about this, behavioral control, financial control, procedural relationship. These are two sort of synthesized cases things that we're going to go through and make a list of which of these items we think are more indicative of being an employee and which of these items we think are more indicative of the person being independent contractors. And then we're going to make a choice, what we think it is in this case. And then there's another one below it. So basically the way that I'm going to set this up is, and that I want you to probably set it up on the final, is what makes it indicative of being an employee and which of these make it indicative of being an independent contractor, and then we'll go assess them on the overall sort of holistic takeaway. So the law offices of Smith, Smith & Smith are in need of a cleaning service, and they advertise in the newspaper and are contacted by the Dynamo Duo. And the first item says the Dynamo Duo consists of 2 individuals. So honestly, that first one is sort of a non-starter for me. I don't think that is very heavily indicative on either side. So I'm just going to go to number 2, and then I'm going to turn it out to you guys, and we're going to go around, and you're going to take the individual ones, and we're going to talk about where we think it belongs. So the next one says they accept the job for $12 an hour and report their hours individually at the end of each month on a Dynamo Duo invoice. So I look at that, and I'm like, I think that has got elements of both. What do you think the element of employee is on that number 2?
The hourly.
Yeah. Right, that more smacks of employee. But the piece that's confusing for the IC, Amanda, what's that?
The invoice.
Yeah, they've got an invoice. So what I'm looking for you to do, as you can see by my prompts here, is to look at the keys and come up with some little phrase or something that sort of ties it all in as belonging under either of those columns. Okay, Kim, you want to read number 3 for me and tell me what you thought?
A contract is signed stating the wage rate that offices must be cleaned at each weeknight. That 2 weeks' notice must be given to clear enough individuals or independent contractors.
Well, there's quite a number of things in here. Take a second to unpack it and then tell me what you think.
So, since it tells them when, that they need to be cleaned each weeknight,
Yeah.
the employees,
Okay, what do you want me to write?
behavioral control.
So because there's so many facets to that, I'm going to put it kind of over to the side, and then, when to perform services. Okay, so each night. What else is in there? I'm going to just go around.
That 2 weeks notice must be given to quit.
And which slide does that?
I would say employee.
And what do you want me to write?
Time control.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Brooke, did you see one other thing there?
It says they're listed as independent contractors.
Yeah, so they made you sign a contract, right?
So that's all.
Right, that says we're both agreed contractor, so what, like category or what is that? I'm not sure I know how to spell hooey. Yeah, it's perceived relationship, but which side does it go on? Yeah. Because I'm saying to you, if you want to come work for me, you need to sign a piece of paper that says you're independent. That's what they just said. Contract is signed stating these very opposing sort of things. You've got a wage rate, i.e. hourly. You've got to give 2 weeks to quit, which is very much more an employee-like attribute. And that you're agreeing to be an independent.
Is that like totally legal? Like, could you literally have them be like totally set up as employees and be like, oh hey, but we also, I was gonna say, I don't, this is not legal, is it?
Absolutely not. I had that situation when we had just moved from grad school in California to Northern Colorado. I had 2 little kids, and I was just trying to get independent gigs because I was home with my kids for 18 months. And I worked for a patent attorney, so he's a freaking attorney. And I would go down, drive into downtown Fort Collins at 11 o'clock at night and do all of his books for the day and his deposits and everything, back up his computer, blah, 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 work till like 3 in the morning, and then go home. And he made me sign a piece of paper just like this, basically. I'll pay you $30 an hour and you're independent. Was I independent?
No.
I had to drive to his office. I used his software. I had a key to his building. I had, I went through the same 8 redundant steps every single night. Okay, I wasn't independent, but he made me sign a contract that said I was independent, so that I had to pay my own FICA, and I couldn't claim against his unemployment or his workers' comp or whatever.
So it's kind of like the exempt versus non-exempt, just because you say someone is.
I was, and I was young, and I mean, frankly, $30 an hour in 1988 was a crap load of money, and so it was like I paid my 15% out of it, and I was happy for it. But I wasn't independent, and if I'd known my rights at the time, or I think in a lot of situations, and that's a good example, is I was vulnerable. I didn't have a whole ton of choices. So you're like, yeah, sure, I'll pay my FICA. But I mean, no, it wasn't legal. A piece of paper would never have held up if I'd gone to the Department of Labor and Industry in Colorado.
Okay, cool. That's what I'm
Yeah,
curious.
never.
They do.
Never.
Because at my office, each dentist has their own contract, and one of our dentists, who has now retired, he had his own contract, and he had to work certain days of the week, but he was independent. He just worked under the office's name, but he worked his contract and he was independent. So how would
Yeah, it
that
seems
work?
sort of interesting, like in cosmetology, and I've never heard it with a dental, it's a clinic, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And then they share the expensive equipment, but each have their own
Operatories, and yeah,
areas and their own, do they share like billing software and?
we did all the work for him. but
Everything's
yeah, his
shared.
contract, and he had to get like his own insurance policies and stuff like that.
There must be some exception I'm not aware of, because that's like what cosmetologists work too. Like if I want a space and, one of the hot, like Tangles or something, or Swoon, or one of the hot salons in Missoula, I mean, I'm gonna pay top dollar to get in there. I've got to buy all my own product, I'm independent. I've got all my own clients, but I pay my own FICA, my own workers' comp, my own SUTA, but it's not just like, oh, I'm only gonna show up on Tuesdays and do hair. It's like, no, you've got to log 45 hours and you've got to work 2 Saturdays a month, and right? Because if you own the salon, you don't want a bunch of empty stalls sitting there because Sue only needs to work 1 day a week. So yeah, I'm not really sure how that exception works,
Is that
but
just for like scheduling purposes, just to make sure like you're agreeing?
no, it's beyond that. I mean, they tell you, like the salon I go to, like they all use the same product line. They use the same product line. So somewhere along the line, I'm assuming it's the salon owner, says you have to use fill in the blank. So I think a lot of choices are taken away from the people. It's not what I would call it all truly independent. Like,
It's like a hybrid.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. There must be some case law on it. Where were we? Oh, signing a contract that says you're independent. Sign contract stating independent. All right, Jenna, number 4.
Smith and Smith will furnish the cleaning supplies. The Dynamo Duo will furnish the vacuum and other specialized equipment.
So what's all in there?
The Smith and Smith, furnish the cleaning supplies is on the employee side.
Yep, what do you want me to rank?
Furnish cleaning supplies.
A furnished supply, sure. Okay,
And then, the Dynamo Duo vacuum and other specialized equipment would be independent contractor. And, furnished equipment.
yeah, so how's equipment, or is equipment different from supplies? How so?
It's like their investment, right?
One more time.
Their investment.
It's really when so for those of you that aren't accountants, so like the vacuum is called a fixed asset or a capital asset. And that generally requires an investment of some sort. I mean, if I'm going and buying, vinegar and borax and green cleaning supplies, I'm spending $20 a week. If I'm going and buying an industrial vacuum, that's an investment. I mean, I'm probably paying a couple grand for it, right? So I'm going to call this investment in equipment or investment in fixed asset. Okay, Josh, 5.
The windows need washing, so Mr. Smith asked the individuals to put in a couple extra hours on Wednesday and wash them. The carpets need shampooing, and that will need to be done next week. A month, I can't read. So the first one, so that would be under employees. Would that be under like, the time control? He's telling them when to do it.
So here's what we've got up
Yeah.
so far.
So employee section.
Yeah, it is employees, but I think there's something up there that's more pertinent than the time control.
Oh, it's overtime? Is it?
No,
What? What? Individuals put in a couple extra hours on Wednesday, so
Right.
that'd be overtime on that day.
it could be. We don't know how many hours a week they work. But I'm just saying, like, where do you put this up here?
Under employee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which section? Kind of behavioral control. Right, because they're saying like, now you've got to do this extra thing, right? You've got to wash windows, got to put in extra hours.
But on a specific day though.
Right.
Wednesday, so that's time control. We have to do it on Wednesday. They have to stay after on Wednesday.
Okay, well, and these, so I think what we were doing, yeah,
I feel like that's
time
both.
control isn't really a category. What are our 3 categories again?
Well,
Behavioral control, financial control, and perceived
I
relationship.
guess it is behavioral then.
It is behavioral. I'm not quite sure why I wrote
That
that.
threw me off. Okay, so yeah. So
It did. It's
behavioral.
not really one of our
Yeah.
3 major categories. I think actually, in retrospect, under here, I would just have that 2 weeks to quit is more of an employee attribute. And then under here, what do you want me to write under behavioral control?
Late shift, I don't know, stay late. Time frame,
Yeah, it's another when, isn't it?
yeah.
And then also very specifically, right, what to do. You got to wash the windows. It's not just keep my building clean. Like, keep my building clean is like, you just need to figure out how to keep my building clean. You have your own schedule of shampooing carpets and deep cleaning and windows and exterior and whatever, right? Very specifics is a directive on what to do to accomplish a task. It would be like somebody asking me to do their tax return and then going like, first you need to get my fixed assets input into the depreciation schedule. Then you need to figure out my profit and loss for my business. Then you need to get in my education credits. I'm like, I don't need you telling me what order to do them. And it's not important in my situation, or it shouldn't be to them and isn't, if I hire somebody else to do it and then just review their work, right? They just want a product that's ready to be filed at the price that I quoted them, with all their benefits maximized, right?
I kind of like to think of it like having, like, employees are kind of like having their own army, that's like your thing, and then independent contractors are like hiring mercenaries, you know what I mean? Like
So
outside.
that would be a certain frame of reference. I do know exactly what you mean. I could think of a much more benign analogy, but mercenaries and army members, okay. The analogy's solid. We all process information differently. Okay, number 6, who am I on? Brett.
Gotcha. If one of the dynamic duo is ill, then a friend takes over the job and reports $70 work to a firm. So that sounds like very independent contractor-like, because it's not saying you guys have to do it.
Right.
And then the firm pays her at the same hourly rate as a dynamic duo. That sounds very independent contractor-like.
Well, so this is sort of weird though. So sketch this out. So here's Smith, Smith, and Smith, right? And they hired the Dynamo Duo. And the Dynamo Duo is not going to show up, right? So they hire a friend, right? So the friend works.
But I think the dynamic duo should have to pay the friend.
But they don't.
Yes, that's a little employee-like, right?
So, but they hired them.
Yeah.
That would be like me going to the university like, I'm not going to show up next week. I'm going to get a buddy to come teach the class.
Yeah.
And then could you just pay him? Right? Yeah, that's not going to work. So what is this? Does this look like anything you know?
It's a company contract, the company's contracted to provide a specific work. The usual person can't provide that work, so the partner has to step in.
So, but if I was, I agree with that, Ben, but if I was, let's focus in, in a true subcontractor relationship, if I'm the Dynamo Duo, yeah, that's fine, I go get a friend, they come in, they clean, but then what? Right, I pay my buddy, and then I bill Smith, Smith, and Smith, right? In an employee situation, I can't come to work, I don't call my friend, I call my employer and say I can't come to work, and they've got to obviously, find somebody to fill in for me, or do the work themselves, or go without doing the work like they all do with work, except the work. So this is like a real niche, and this is the kind of stuff that happens all the time. It's like, what? I mean, it doesn't make sense from any perspective, per se. It's not really indicative of a Dynamo Duo, or I mean, of independent contractor. It's not indicative of employee either. So I would just probably, something like that, for lack of anything better, I would probably just say, very strange, what? It's not replacement, it's,
I just put paid filling under employee and hired filling under.
Could you separate it?
okay, wait, what did you say, Scott?
I put paid fill in
Paid fill-in.
under there, and I put hired or arranged for the fill in under the.
Okay, fair enough. I like that. Yeah, so it looks like an IC because they arranged for fill-in help, but it looks like an employee because Smith, Smith, and Smith paid the fill-in help. Right?
I took that as them still paying, dynamic duo, their contractual rate.
No, because it says the firm pays her at the same hourly rate as the Dynamo Duo. They paid the gal that came in, the Dynamo Duo's friends.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how they pay them anyway, that they're paying each one individually instead of paying you for this, so.
Right, yeah, so that further exacerbates it. And again, the reason I'm doing this is like, in textbooks, it's always like, nice and clean. And in the real world, it's messy, it's not clean. Okay, Greg, take the next one, please. Right, so they go and they clean for an older lady on a monthly basis. Which side is that representative of? Okay, good. And what do you want me to write? I don't think it has to do with the time frame. It's just kind of a genre of, that's one of the things in the old law and the 20 checklists that we looked at that's indicative of independent contractors if you have what? Anybody? Yeah, other clients or other patients or other customers. Okay, yeah, number 8.
No one supervises the Dynamo Duo as the attorneys have gone home by the time the individuals arrive.
So they come in at night, right? The attorneys have gone home, so they don't have any supervision. What's that indicative of?
Responsibility for the person.
Okay, but so which column am I in? Okay, and I think maybe they are responsible for their individual behavior, but employees are too.
I think it's employees. I used to be a night cleaner for the company, and I would just go into all these businesses after hours and clean. But I was an employee
Yeah,
of somebody else.
so you don't think that's indicative of independent?
No, because you still have to uphold your company.
So you guys are pretty savvy. You're kind of disproving things as we go. Normally, I just generate a whole list of these and then we vote and then we look at them. But you guys are kind of doing the devil's advocate as we go. Generally, no supervision. Generally, no supervision is indicative of what? Independent. But clearly, an attorney who bills $250 an hour is not hanging out at midnight to make sure that the cleaner is dusting. So, I mean, as we generate this list, it goes here. Because that is indicative of IC. But it's, I'm sorry?
Like you said on the final, you have this, can we do some of this all in both categories?
Well, we just did with the weird starred one.
But I mean, like this one, it's like the no supervision, but that's.
What I'll have you do on the final is generate the list and then discuss. And say like, based on this, if we're gonna do it when we're done here.
Okay.
Like, here we got this laundry list, but based on all the facts of this scenario, that's where your critical thinking skills come in. Really, what is this person?
So what if they're technically like an independent contractor, but you still have to be there while they're working just because they don't have a key, or you don't have to really involve, like.
Well,
you
like,
can sit
give
there
me an
and watch a
example,
movie,
who
but-
would that be?
Well, okay, so when I was in college the first time, I worked Burger King as a manager. They had people come in and clean the vents. So I couldn't leave them there by themselves,
sure,
I was
okay.
not involved in the cleaning process.
But you weren't supervising them.
I
It was more like making sure they didn't steal what?
Burgers.
Bad burgers, I don't know.
Or, and they couldn't have a key, so they couldn't, sure, and I had to set the alarm.
So it was more like an internal control process than a supervision process.
So I just, that was.
Yeah. And I guess in that scenario, what I would write is just internal control protocol being followed or something. That's not really indicative one way or the other. Okay. Who am I on? I'm not on Jenna. Did you go, Ben? Oh, you just went. Scott? We're on the last one.
9.
No, 9, sorry. No, that was the one we just did. 9 is what we're on.
Did we?
Yeah, what?
we just did it.
Yeah, we are nine.
The Dynamo
Okay. And again, let's see, 1099s, before I put that down here, that goes up with something else on this list under a category. Can you help me kind of organize my notes?
Structure control, is that what's called?
Perceived relationship. So where does the 1099s, what does that package with for perceived relationships? Yeah. Perceived relationship. I signed a contract stating I'm independent, and then I got a 1099 at the end of the year. Yeah, okay, good point. Yeah, that's where that should go. Perceived relationship here too. Excellent. What happens in an independent contractor relationship? Like you come in to train my bird dog or build my house or paint my commercial building, and you're like, yeah, I quit. I'm going to sue you for breach of contract. Judge Judy would say, you need to get your ass back there and paint, or you need to pay somebody to finish her commercial building or get her bird dog trained, right? You can't just quit in the middle of a contract any more than I can say like, oh, sorry, I don't really want to pay you $5,000 to train my dog. I feel like it's more worth $2,000. Like, no, but you signed a piece of paper that said you'll pay me $5,000, right? So when you're in an independent contractor relationship, you can't just up and quit. There is no quitting. You got to finish the job. So let's just go through this list, and I want you to just think about it for a second and write down what you wrote there. So for employee, the compelling piece of this is that they have an hourly wage. There seems to be behavioral control as to when to perform services. They're required to work a late shift. They're told what to do. And there's a perceived relationship in that they agreed to 2 weeks to quit. The employer furnishes supplies, and the employer paid the fill-in help. That was a really weird kind of bifurcated situation. For independent contractor, what seems compelling is they submitted an invoice. There's a perceived relationship. They signed a contract stating they were independent. They were issued 1099s. They have significant investment in a fixed asset. They arranged for fill-in help when they couldn't be there. They have other clients, and they're not supervised. So just take a couple seconds and jot down what you think they are. And then circle on your list the 2 most compelling reasons or rationale why you chose what you did. How many people thought, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry, finish up. You're still working. If you don't have a stapler, maybe you could paper clip these together like Kim did. Kim gets a gold star.
Kim's an overachiever.
I guess I wasn't doing it.
I don't know.
You should have something. Okay, how many of you thought that the Dynamo Duo were independent contractors? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many of you thought they were employees? 2. I go with the minority. Why did you think they were an employee?
Pretty much time control and the task being added on.
It really, okay, Amanda, so for Schuyler, so you can hear my query was, what, so I asked who thought it was independent. 8 people said they thought independent. How many people thought it was employee? 2 people said employee. And the correct assessment in this case is in fact employee. And now we're talking about why. I asked Scott why, and he said primarily the driving thing to him was that they tacked on that extra work. Okay? That comes under behavioral control. Amanda, why did you think?
That one, 12 individual people plus those specific conditions that when you had to do it, but also I think paying the bill in the position.
Okay, so for her, it was also the tack on of the extra work when they were scheduled and the paying of the fill-in help. So honestly, so now let's go. I'm going to kind of go and disprove everything, and I totally concur with you guys. That's what the tipping point was. If I did your tax return and I'm like, okay, $600, I'll do your tax return, and then you're like, oh yeah, and by the way, I've got 2 kids and an aunt, and I need you to just do theirs too. Okay, I mean, if I work for you, I'm like, yes, sir, you're my boss. If I'm independent, I'm like, yeah, give me their documentation and I'll bid on those 3 tax returns too. Right? You can't just tack on extra stuff for the same price.
So do we get out?
They are being paid hourly, but I might, if I'm going to do, say the kid's tax return comes in and the kid's got incentive stock options and a business in Rhode Island, I'm not charging them $100 an hour. I'm charging them $2.25 an hour because this thing is way complex. So, and the other thing is with bidding, oftentimes you have an hourly rate. I mean, I know what my hourly rate is, and if the client asks, of course I tell them. But I bid on that and then just give them a price. And if it only takes me 45 minutes, yay. If it takes me 5 hours because I got to get in and research something that I didn't do enough due diligence on up front, bummer for me. I don't make my hourly rate. I make 20% of my hourly rate.
So with like the Windows thing, if they just said, hey, when you get to it, can you make sure you get Windows included in that? Would that have been different instead of saying it needs to be done tonight or on this day?
Do you think that you would charge the same amount to shampoo and wash windows as you would to come in and spritz with a little cleaning
And all
cloth?
the windows, like if I have to get a 16-foot ladder and like
All that.
scrub, or if it's just like Windex, you know,
Yeah.
inside, outside windows, I don't know, like tall, right here, I don't know.
Right. I mean, I think I would charge more because it's way harder work. And you may need specialized equipment like the giant ladder.
I think I would also look at it in the contract that said what you're doing for that, because I feel like in a way, the way it's worded, you're tacking something on that might not even be.
There's places that just do windows, and they
Sure.
can like hire somebody else.
Right, sure,
Can they turn it down? Can they say, I don't want to do your windows?
Well, that's the difference between employment and an IC situation, isn't it? Yeah, I don't do windows. Yeah?
I was gonna say, if this person's an employee, then he doesn't get a different rate. He does-
No, of course not. If I'm an employee, I'm like, okay, I mean, I can say to my employer, you need to get me the 18-foot ladder, and I might want to be harnessed in, or whatever. But, I mean, most of us employees, within reason, don't really have room to tell our boss, no, I'm sorry, I'm only going to do A.
So when we're looking at these, you're asking what we think it should be, not
Classified.
what that, because like to me, I was like, well, you got a 1099, so obviously they are classifying it.
Okay, so what happens, okay, so just Shyler, so you understand this. So, and Kim's question was, are you asking us to identify what they should be or what they are? And clearly from a perceived relationship, they were 1099. So why is there even an issue? Why is there even an issue? Dynamo Duo wakes up one day, they come to this class, what are they going to do? They're going to go back, call the Department of Labor and Industry and say, you know, I've been misclassified for the last 5 years. I've been paying my own FICA, my own workers' comp, my own SUTA, and I wasn't independent. I was an employee of these guys.
Right. So we're looking at it as.
What should they be? What's the accurate classification?
Would you say that it's better to err on the side of caution and say that
It's
they are?
always on the better side to err on the side of caution, but you've got to do that cost benefit with, you know, do the math. So I pay him 20 grand a year to clean my building, 15% of that, or I'm sorry, 7.65% of that, which is the second share of FICA, you know, is $1,500, and SUTA is another $1,500, and workers' comp is you go another $500. So like that costs me $300 extra a month versus erring on the side of caution. That's just how risk averse are you? Good question. So just to kind of go down and dispute these, so submitting an invoice, why is that not super compelling, or how can you sort of dispute that?
I feel like trading your timesheet and everything.
Well, so usually employees turn in timesheets and independents turn in invoices. Is an invoice something anymore that you have to go to the printer and make a big investment in? No. I mean, I print my invoices off of Word. Pretty unsophisticated. And do you remember on that 15-point list that we just looked at, how many points was that a big one or was that a little one? That was like one of the 1.5 points. Okay, perceived relationship, that's the strongest thing over here. I said, hey, I'm independent. I got a 1099. But what Rhett said is really the most salient. You guys have all had business law? No, some of you, most of you. So what happens if we make a contract that I'm going to bring in 2,000 pounds of cocaine and then I don't show up? Can you sue me?
Yeah.
You can't.
Oh, it's illegal. Okay. I thought
It
you
was
were
it was for an
I thought you were
illegal
using
activity.
cocaine. I thought you were just using cocaine as an example. Yeah, no.
That was a very purposeful example.
No, you can't do that. Not for.
It's a very purposeful example. It was never a contract because it was for an illegal activity. So me breaking it is not illegal. You can't sue me, right?
So I'm saying, if somebody asks you to bring 2,000 pounds of cocaine, don't do it.
That is what I'm saying. And if you decide to do it, probably don't sign your name to a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Most major drug busts in this country are not with commensurate prison time. It's not actually for the trade of drugs themselves. It's for what? It's money laundering. You can only take $10,000 at a time to any given bank without having to show documentation, the trail of where the cash came from. So if I don't really know the street price for a pound of cocaine. Can anybody help me out?
Wait, a pound, it goes in kilos.
Oh, see, right there, you guys just are showing my ignorance.
It's around 30,000 per kilo.
It's not.
It's 1,000.
30,000, okay, well, let's do the math. There's 2.2 pounds in a kilo, and I said 2,000 pounds, so let's just say roughly to kind of, let's say 900 kilos times 30,000. So I've got $2.7 million to launder. I'm not counting. $2.7 million, $10,000 increments? Not. I am not going to 270,000 banks. What am I doing?
That's why you said car wash.
You see, I'm setting up all sorts of cash-based businesses. In the old days, they were taxi cabs. Now they're mostly digital. And that's exactly what Pablo Escobar did. And I'm gonna launder my 2.7 million times. I mean, put 3 zeros on the end of this. These are billion-dollar industries. So that's usually what we get brought down for. What does this have to do with this? Where did I put that? Contract, illegal contract. Like, how did I get into cocaine? I don't know. Not into cocaine, into the example of cocaine.
Great audio.
You get great audio, right? Yeah, somebody just taps right in there. So that's the perceived relationship. The first one's really invalid because I haven't signed a contract that wasn't illicit, but it just wasn't viable. It wasn't reflective of it's like me coming to Jenna and going, sign this contract that says you're a small Korean man. And you sign it, doesn't make you a small Korean man, right? Okay, 1099s, that's compelling. How about the investment in the fixed asset? $2,500 into a commercial vacuum?
I'd say
That's fairly convincing.
Although like you used the example of mechanics and people.
But just on Tuesday, we came up with one example of an employee has to show up if I'm a mechanic. I need to show up on the job site with my own tools. And I've got a couple, a transmission guy in particular, that I do all his taxes for, and that was one of his biggest overhead items was small tools. He's just like, they just walked off the jobs, they just walked out of my shop. I don't really necessarily think of people necessarily stealing them, They're just not taking as much care. You got a ratchet set, every little ratchet, is, X amount of dollars. And it's like they just disappeared. So now he makes all of his guys, and he's got one gal, show up with their own, their own tools. And he's setting up $5,000-7,000 investment. What else is another example that many of us have probably at one time or another in our lives had to own to do our jobs?
You don't have to own a car.
But, well,
Judge Judy, you don't.
in this day and age, you really don't. There's much less interest from millennials in car ownership. They see it for the huge financial suck that it is. And they use things like car share or public transit. I mean, my son in DC has not owned a car since he was 17 years old. He's 28. There's just no point in owning one in DC. Where's they going with that again? Investment in fixed assets. So it is compelling. I do agree, but you can also come up with examples where employees have to have an investment in fixed assets. And then again, we've been through this a bunch of times. It's arranged for fill and help with other clients. That's just a weird scenario. And the no supervision, Josh hit it on the head. There's, although it's indicative of independent, there's tons of examples where lower billable hour independent contractors are not supervised directly by the hiring agent, right? So if I hire you to build my house, am I going to be there on the job site all day, every day? Or am I going to be doing like check-ins when I get off my regular job every night and being like, oh, you were supposed to get the, get something plumbed in today, right? So even though we've got lists that are almost essentially the same, pretty clear when you start tearing apart the independent contractor one, that in fact you need more controls from outside.
So with things like the vacuum cleaner, I mean, it's not specialized tools for a specific automobile or anything. I mean, most people own a vacuum cleaner. I don't think that's so much, I mean, if you bring in your one home, that's not really.
Right. Did I make up the part about the commercial vacuum, or did it say that?
It says furnished vacuum.
Okay. So what it was the Kirby. It was a damn expensive vacuum. You what?
Burn my finger, they get boiling hot. Fun fact for you. Yeah.
I never have, and I can honestly say probably never will own a $2,000 vacuum cleaner. So I will never burn my fingers on.
Well, you're in luck.
Huh.
It hurts.
I bet it does. Jenna?
Think with other clients.
Ah, okay.
That's one.
Oh, I didn't go to that one. I'm sorry, I popped right over that one. Yeah, Jenna said, well, what about the other clients? This is compelling. Very compelling. But they only what? They have one other client. So, and I can give you a magic number, if they had 10, then we might be saying like, that's pretty gall darn indicative. It's just that there's only one. So it's almost, but like again, like if I gave you the number, they have 3 clients, they have 5, or does it have to be 50? I don't know what the magic number is. My whole point of this exercise is this is a gray area, Amanda, and then one.
Can you look at it as they're an employee for these people, but they are independent contractors for their other clients, so.
You could.
their relationship.
You could. Yeah, I work 30 hours a week here, and then once a month I show up for the sweet little old lady up on the hill. And, yeah. Yep. Okay, let's go through the next one. So new piece of paper. Make your headings. And now we're down here. Okay, the Dynamo Duo are gone. The offices still need to be cleaned. And Smith, again, advertise for a cleaning person. Warren, read me the first one.
Mr. Smith, while reading the paper, notices the section displaying individual business cards. He follows Mr. Clean.
What do you think? That's indicative of.
That would be independent contractor, I think.
Okay, and what do I want to say?
Have you had a perceived relationship with people?
Well, yeah, I'm kind of looking here for more just a specific of, I mean, I opened the paper, any more, I'd probably fire up my iPad, and I see a business card in the section of the paper that shows, the advertising businesses. Yeah, I mean, I think it would just say advertising. Okay, Brooke, the next one, please.
Mr. Klein has listed on his application for work and he claims for 2 other business establishments during the day so that he must be in the office at night. He listed several other individuals and then make more as references. So I would say that's an independent contractor because he's saying when he can work. not
Okay,
get-
so what do you want me to write?
um,
Okay, so he establishes when? And what's the other thing there?
Well, he claims references, but I mean, that can be part of the employee. Either way, you need references.
I don't think it's the references so much, Kim.
Oh,
Yeah, that one. Okay, Amanda, you're on the next one.
Mr. Klein reviews the job and since he wants to be assured of the job for at least a year, writes a contract for a year at $12 per hour, stating that he will review each night. He states that he is an independent contractor.
This one's got mixed messages again.
I would say because there's a contract for a year, that that's independent contractor. But the $12 an hour, I guess I would say that he's specifically saying what cleaning he will do. So he's
Okay.
setting it.
Okay, so what do you want me to write?
Determine, like, preset job.
That's the what, isn't it? What do you want me to do with the $12 an hour?
That's something that you usually think of as a employee.
It sure is. Again, most independents, well, that's not true. Like, I'm just hiring a guy right now to do some tiling work for me, and he comes in and he bids materials plus a percentage. And then, well, it is time. I mean, he's like, it's going to take 4 days. And I got to have somebody with me. So he does the math in his head, what, it's going to bill out at.
We have an independent contractor that we use for the company we work for, and they actually go to provide services to outside agencies when it's convenient to them, but they bill us after hourly rate based on how many hours they put in. But it's an ongoing contract.
Sure. So, and that's a good point. Hourly rate seems to be an employee, but that doesn't mean that there's not situations where independents don't do that, right? Okay, let's see who's up then. Number 4.
The company will furnish the supplies, but Mr. Klein will bring in his own industrial strength equipment to use on the job.
Okay, so we've already done this. What goes under the employee?
Furnish supplies.
And then what goes under IC?
Specialized equipment.
Yeah. Okay, Greg? I think we're on number 5.
Oh, sorry, I was just writing this down.
Oh, you're fine.
The firm mentions that they will need to purchase your cleaning space that you cannot do under this present hourly wage, but that was more routine, easy work as detailed in the contract. You will submit a bid price bid.
Does that lend itself to employee or to independent? Why? I mean, if you're an employee, are you going to say that to your boss? No. I'm sure I'll love your job very long, right? So under independent, what should I write?
Um,
mean, he's saying, go ahead. Not really declining work, but yeah, additional bid for additional work. It's like, yeah, I'll do it. I'm interested in doing it, just like I'll do your 2 kids and your aunt's tax return. It's not like I'm disinterested in it. It's just I need to get all my ducks in a row to make a good bid on it, right? Yeah. Additional work, additional bid. Okay, Rhett?
At the end of the year, a 1099 is issued to Mr. Clean, that is perceived relationship.
Good. And I would put, if I was doing this like on a test, I would put, 1099 under there. Okay, and Josh, number 7.
When Mr. Clean was at Cleaning Supplies Convention, his brother cleaned the offices for him. Mr. Clean paid him what he thought he was worth.
I was gonna give you trouble.
Would that be an employee?
So let's diagram this. So here's Smith, Smith, and Smith. Here's Mr. Clean. Here's the brother, right? So Mr. Clean's gone. The brother does the work. And Mr. Clean pays him the money. What's that scenario look like to you?
Independent, yeah.
That's a very classic subcontractor relationship, isn't it?
Hired outside help. Or employee.
Did you write these?
I took them and I modified them.
Did you do the part about what he's worth?
I don't remember. I've been using this for kind of a long time, maybe. I took them and modified them to make them even grayer than they were. So hired, owned sub. And then no supervision goes under which side, the last one? Yeah. So this one's pretty clear cut, isn't it?
Employee.
Josh, I think it's an employee. I'm sticking with it. Okay, yeah, this one's independent contractor. Okay, good job. So you'll have, on the final, I can tell you what your 4 case studies are going to be. This is going to be one of them.
So like this.
Just like this. I mean, not this, but just like different situation, obviously. But you should do it just like you just did it. You're going to have to process a full payroll for one person. Here's the hours, here's the wages, here's the OT. Here's what the W-4 says. You're going to have to use the fit tables. You're going to have to, we haven't done SIT yet, but we will. You'll have to use the SIT tables. You know all the rules around FICA. I might throw in a 401k or a flex, so you have to know which taxes to take out on them.
And it's only one employee.
Only one employee. Because again, I've only got 2 hours and it'll take you the full 2 hours. You're definitely going to have to do one either kind of deposit or payroll tax return. So here's a situation, make the 940 deposit. Or here's a situation, do the 941. Or here's a situation, we haven't learned how to do SUTA or SIP. We're going to do that in the next 3 weeks. Do a SUTA tax return, do a SIP tax return. You're definitely going to need to know how to gross up payroll and make a deposit based on it. Because that happens a lot. What's the fourth case study? Oh, exempt versus non-exempt. And if you don't know what that means, better go figure that out. So let's turn our attention. Oh gosh, the class is getting ready to be over. I've used this whole pad of paper. Oh no, okay. Go ahead, Jenna.
So is the final for sure gonna be on April
It's Tuesday from 1:10 to 3:10, was what we decided. I'm sticking by it. Tuesday from 1:10 to 3:10, not Friday. Now, you guys know, or maybe you don't know, but I'm going to tell you, there's a university policy, you can't be required to take more than 2 finals in a day. So if you need adjustment for the final time that we have, just let me know, and I'll put it down in the Ask Center. I have no opposition to doing that whatsoever. Where am I? Payroll accounting. So we have pretty much talked to death. Section 1, independent contractor versus employees, and Section 2, contractor registration. Remind me what contractor registration's for? Go ahead.
To register at the Department of Labor that you are a contractor, and it's for bidding purposes. So when you get a bid, there's a list of particular.
That's exactly what it is. It's a construction contractor registration. You should know the history behind it. Why did it come to be? 23 years ago now, 24 years ago. You should know what you need to do to comply with it if you're in the construction industry. Where you send the form, how long it's good for, what it costs, right? Just general compliance stuff. Now we're on Section 3. I'm just going to do a brief introduction to this today, since I've only got 17 minutes left. So this, we are going to be working on 2 very different areas in Montana payroll state tax law. One is the Department of Revenue, they're called DOR, and one's called the Montana Department of Labor and Industry, it's DOLI. Which one do you think handles SIT, and which one do you think handles SUTA?
The Montana Department of Revenue covers SIT, and the other one is SUTA.
Department of Revenue handles SIT, state income tax, and most states, they have something called either the Franchise Tax Board or their Department of Revenue. So when I go to do taxes for somebody that lives in Rhode Island, I can generally go on and go Rhode Island Department of Revenue, and their individual taxation law will pop up in the forms, and I can use that. And so if we say there, DOLI handles SUTA. They used to be merged where you only had to register once and get one number and comply with one set of rules. Now they've divested, what's that word? Detached. And you have to register for each, different application for each, different set of returns for each. So we're just going to kind of methodically go through this. I would encourage you to build a reference material, a reference page that looks something like this. And if I think about it, or you remind me, I'll try and do it for this as I go. I'm going to make you build your own, because me sitting up here and having you write down what I write down isn't helpful for you. But, I mean, what kinds of things, what are our big taxes that we've learned about? Okay, FICA? Okay, that's OASDI and what? NHI, right? And what else? FIT? And you always put those together because they go together, right? Okay. This thing kind of gives you a headache. Okay. FICA, FIT, workers' comp. I'm going to put that over here. FUTA, SUTA. What am I missing? SIT. And for every single one of these, like just based on this class in general, what kinds of stuff do you have to worry about? Okay, you need to know the percentages or the tables to use. And those are all different, aren't they? But what kinds of rules, Jenna?
Oh, I was gonna say tax.
Oh, good. Percentages and tables and caps, absolutely.
Which ones are, or what types of things are exempt?
Exactly, good. What else do you need to know? Who pays it? So some of them have percentages, some of them have tables, some of them are employee and employer, some have caps, some don't. Now, what do I have to physically do with these taxes once I've figured out all this stuff? You got to deposit them. So you need to know. And let's just do one. For example, the deposit rules on FICA, I would probably marry with what? FICA, FIT. They go together, don't they? So if you were to tell me what the deposit rules are for FICA, FIT, what would you tell me? You would use two words. It depends. You're killing me. What does it depend on? Well, no. It depends upon what kind of depositor they've told you you are, based on something called a look-back period. And no, you guys don't get to use Amanda and Scott as one of your resources. Teasing you. But, you don't. So you need to figure that out. What do you put in there? I'm trying to show you how to set up resources for the test.
Oh,
What's the rules? How often I deposit? Well, it depends. Depends on what? Depends on what kind of depositor you are based on the look-back period. What are the options? Well, there's two, but there's two exceptions. Semi-weekly. Yeah, 3 little days usually. Monthly, which means it's due by the 15th of the next month. But there's an exception if you're, huh?
Not over 500 in taxes and quarterly?
That's FUTA. If you owe more than 100 grand, what?
Daily.
24 hours. If you owe less than what? There's so many numbers going around. It's less than 2,500 in a whole quarter. You're so small, you only have to just pay it with 941. You're not going to remember all that, but you're going to have a nice little tool here that does it for you. Because your chances of finding what I just said in your book is going to take a half hour to get a 3-point question. What are the deposit rules for FUTA? What are the deposit rules for STIT? What are the deposit rules for SUTA? Well, you don't know these two because we haven't done it. We're doing that right now. You hear what I'm saying? I want a piece of paper with everything on it. So once I deposit, then what do I have to do? In one way or another with each of these organizations for taxes. I make the deposits, and is that just all good and everybody believes me that they're right?
yeah, the percentage of which part of revenue is Social Security.
Yeah, you've got to do some sort of reporting. So for like FICA FIT, what kinds of reports do I have to do? 941, how often? Quarterly, and then what do I have to do? What does that tie to?
940 at the end of the year.
Nope, 940 is FUTA. See what I'm saying? I'm going to quit filling this in, but you need to do this. Or something like this that makes sense to your brain.
When you say what is it tied to?
W3. It ties to the W3. And then you need to know where all these things go and by what date. Kind of the guts of payroll. Sunday, you're going to think, I don't know when that's going to be. I just met with a outside CPA this morning on the continuing saga that I've been sharing with you.
And one of the things she told me, these are just things I simply don't think about, because I obviously have not transitioned all the way to the digital era. But she's like, do you get your monthly financial statements from your bookkeeper? Does she download them to Excel, or do you get them right straight from QuickBooks? I'm like, ooh. She's like, and I'm like, why? She's like, don't let her download them to Excel, then you can just manipulate anything you want. It comes right from the system. At least, garbage in, garbage out, it came from the system. Or, what was the other one? Invoices. What's your process for verifying electronically submitted invoices? Again, I repeat, I don't know. I'm like, why? Oh, what's it called? PDFs that are manipulatable or whatever. Yeah, she's like, he submits an invoice for $100, your bookkeeper goes in there and changes it to $1,000 and you approve it. Like, do they do that? Good. Like, God, I'm off this board so effing bad. I'm just like done with all this. So there's just so many different things that you have to think about and worry about that you just, so what I asked from her, which is I'm tying into this for just a key lessons learned, is I asked her, please just give me one piece of paper, two, whatever it takes, that just is a checklist of things that we can go through every month as a board and make sure, that we're not being, having fraud perpetrated on us. And so for you guys, I think you want a couple pieces of paper that just have all the information so you're not constantly having to look it up, because that'll eat up time. Okay. That had to do with what? Oh, I've not gotten off of here. Okay. So for the Department of Revenue is obviously state income tax. So we've got to figure out all those things that we just put on that piece of paper. How do you know how much to withhold? Is there a cap? Who pays it? So set employee, employer, or both? That's employee, it's an income tax, comes out of your paycheck. Okay? How do you figure out how much? Oh, is there a cap on it? Like I make $200,000 and don't pay an income tax in Montana? Oh, no. There's some people here that would like that very much.
No, is there like a W-4 for the same?
And that's what we're going to learn about right now. You just use the same W-4. You pull the same numbers off, single with 3, married with 5. So can you guys, bring it up, let me give you a couple examples, and I want you to pull the SIT withholding from them. So here, okay, and I'm going through all this, but if I were you, I would very carefully look at this. Actually, you know what? Let's spend some time on this. We've only got 6 minutes left. We'll start on the numbers on Tuesday. So this is, sorry, I got a little ahead of myself there. This is, I just pulled this right from the DOR website, printed it and scanned it. You guys would obviously just go to the URL and hot link to it. And these really don't get revised too terribly often. You can see, here's your table of contents. I would probably have that pretty easy reference for an exam. So if I'm looking for something, oh gosh, what's a penalty for a late file? I just go to the table of contents.
Can we log into like this?
Sure. Okay, so this is basically saying the employer's got to withhold state income tax. There's some specific exemptions, and we've had, one of you just brought that up, we've had exemptions with all kinds of taxes. So you need to go through that. This is really, I think, a handy chart because it's all these like specialized things that you can just kind of go to and be like, you're subjected to it or you're not. Like, oh gosh, number 22, I'm in charge of getting volleyball referees for my kids' high school volleyball game. And, I pay them a stipend of $30 a game. Do I have to take state income tax out of there? And it's like, yep, they're subject to it, line 22. I'm an elected public official. I'm the mayor of Missoula. Do I have to pay SIT? Sure I do, line 16.
You know, I'm a member of a partnership. Do you guys remember that? How come I don't have to pay? How come I'm not subject if I'm a member of a partnership or an LLC? Am I an employee? No, I'm not an employee. It's flow through income. It comes through to me on a K-1 and goes to my individual tax return. Okay, how much to withhold? Amanda just asked the question, do you have a separate W-4? No, you just use the regular old W-4 from the IRS.
Is there any reason why an employer might have a different number for your state versus?
Is there, say that again?
So I noticed on one of the companies ago that my employer has a federal one, but my state is different.
Different number of withholding losses? Well, you would have filled that out.
But I did the federal one. Is there, you have to fill it again? Yeah, that's what I'm confused by.
I mean, I think it should be the same. You know, actually, that's not true, without divulging your personal situation, because you get a pretty good credit for the feds that you're not going to get that same kind of credit for the state. So maybe there would make sense on yours to be a difference. Does that make sense? Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay.
I don't know a protocol or a conversion for that, though. Okay, then here, this should look familiar to you. What are supplemental wages? Like? No, those actually go into your regular wages. This is stuff like, severance pay, remember those retroactive pay? Non-discretionary bonuses, I'm sorry, discretionary bonuses, not the ones you're talking about when you say commissions and fees and bonuses. The way you said that made me think it was just wrapped into your regular compensation scheme. Huh? No, that's not right. So, yeah, no, here, it's this separate one, like this holiday bonus or retroactive pay or severance pay. I'm honestly not sure what they're talking about in that first sentence. Commissions and bonuses and overtime is not considered supplemental wages. We've been treating that just like regular wages and going to our tables, right? So scratch that out. What rate were we using for federal supplemental? 22 and 6 for state. All right, we'll pick up here on Tuesday. What I would recommend you do, as boring as this is going to feel, is at least go through this withholding guide and like highlight it or kind of mark up what you think is the most relevant. Super exciting, huh? I have everyone's assignment 1. Assignment 2 will be due next Thursday. You read from it and like, no, that's not right.
Well, it kind of does correct it. So if you pay them like together, then it's like totally on me, but if you pay them separately, then the tax can be without the options.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I just didn't read far enough. I was
I'm in class after this, I'll be able to get that to you.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, okay, I'll be gone here, but that's fine.
I get into town late Thursday.
Okay.
On the 1st. So
Okay.
trying to get the Friday the 2nd and the original schedule day.
Yeah, no
I
problem.
could do morning or whatever.
Just
Whatever is
go down
convenient for
there,
them.
well, no, go down there and schedule with them now.
Oh, I
'cause they'll-
schedule with them, okay.
Yeah, you schedule with them and then just tell me what the time is and I'll get it done.
Okay, perfect. I can
Yeah,
do that.
yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Who are you going to see again?
Her name's Aliette. She's a Canadian singer. And then a Swedish singer as well. Closer to never come, so I was like, I'm gonna snap the opportunity.
So does it remotely excite you that the B-52s in Berlin are coming this summer? Or do you have no-
Missoula?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
August 8th. The B-52s in Berlin.
Our tickets already on sale?
Yes,
What, since when?
like this morning.
Well, the cookie, so I could check.
I guess I'm continuing on top of that one. Interesting. Okay. So that was step number 2, so I withhold taxes, then what do I have to do? I got to deposit. Who do I deposit to? How do I deposit, and how do I know when to deposit? Brooke? Who do I send my SIT deposits to?
Sometimes we go to the Department of Revenue.
Yes, ma'am. And Kim, how do I do that? What's that deposit form called? Anybody remember?
NW1.
MW1.
Gosh, why was there
MW1. Or I can e-file it, or I can do it from each up.
And don't you have to write Montana on the top, or what was
That's
that?
for 1099s and 1096s.
I know.
Amanda, how do I know how often to deposit?
Based on the amount you deposited.
Okay, so today I owe $50, so I choose to wait a month.
Depends on, at the quarter, how much you
You remember that? How I figure out how much to, or how often to deposit?
There's 3 different cycles. Is that
Yeah. There's 3 different, and it's not my choice, is it?
No, it's based on quantity or size of.
It's based on my look-back period, how much have I deposited in the last year? And the Department of Revenue sends me a letter every November, same time I get the letter from the IRS. And what are my 3 choices? What's one of them? Well, not choices, but what are the 3 types of depositors? That's okay, we'll just keep going. Greg, remember one of them? They emulate, the first 2 emulate the feds.
Monthly, quarterly,
No, monthly is by the what?
The
15.
15th of the next month, that looks just like the federal schedule. Okay, another option is called the semi-weekly, which is also known as accelerated, which looks just like the federal. And then the last one that doesn't look like a federal schedule is what? The annual. And if you're an annual filer, you send the money in with your
Don't remember that.
W-2s, which has a transmittal form called an MW3.
There it is.
You can say that all
And
day.
now I don't do it.
Okay, MW3. That's the cycle for SIP. Okay? And, I mean, you've got those 4 things to worry about with every tax. If I was you, I'd make some sort of grid that tells me exactly what I do. How do I withhold? When do I pay? How do I pay? Where do I pay to? By what date? How do I reconcile? When's the report due? Okay, because reading chapter 6, trying to figure out when a 940 is due is going to be a colossal cluster on how you perform on the exam. And I've seen students do it, flipping through the pages, like, no! Okay, SUDA administered by the Department of Labor and Industry. You've only got 2 things to worry about, because it's not a withholding tax, it's an employer paid tax, right? So you've got to calculate how much. Oh, we did 2 start on this. We did the whole report. We did an example of the report. Sure we did. We're definitely not going to be here 80 minutes. So again, all right, well then tell me, what are the 2 things, this is probably the number 1 question you get about SUDA. Why is my rate, I own the Redbird and my buddy owns Scotty's Table, they're very like-kind restaurants. Why is my rate higher than Scotty's?
based on previous, or the risk factor of unemployment.
Exactly. So speculate. If my rate is higher than Scotty's, maybe Scotty's is a blank employer and I'm a blank employer. Okay, which one's the deficit employer?
The one who turns out all the employees are.
Me, I am, 'cause I got a higher rate.
And then they put on the surplus.
Yeah, so maybe speculate, Scotty's is a surplus employer, which means they pay more unemployment in than they have employees claiming, because they've got a great server training program, and they treat their cooks really great, and they have PTO and benefits, so they hold on to their people, right? And me, not so much. So I'm a deficit employer. I have more people claiming unemployment against my number
or against my pool, then I have paid in. Okay? So that's one factor, is the individual employer's performance. What's the second factor? I took you through 2 sets of tables.
Isn't another one that person who comes up, math person, and is that not?
The actuary actually comes up with those tables on deficit and surplus.
Oh, okay.
That very first set of tables isn't employer specific, it's what? It's what? The health of the pool of money itself, the health of the economy. Remember those 10 rate schedules? Every year, the Department of Labor and Industry is like, they do that risk reserve ratio, which was the gross wages to the money they have in the pool. And if that number's pretty darn high, we're doing pretty darn good, they're gonna publish a low rate schedule for everybody. Schedule 1, and it goes up from Schedule 1 to Schedule 11. And then each of those is broken down into surplus and deficit. So there's one thing you can't control at all, which is the 11 schedules are in effect for the upcoming year. What you can control, to some degree, is your HR policies and your management's file that ascertains whether you're a deficit or a surplus employer. And yes, you will have to reiterate that. That's the core of how your rate is calculated.
So that is just a regurgitation of this. Which of the 11 rates are published? And then within that, are you eligible / surplus, or are you deficit? And obviously just looking at the numbers, deficit employers have, their rates are 3 times as high. Not good. Okay, what's this guy? Oh, this is our registration. And then this is our quarterly report, which is due when? Same time as what other report? 9/41. It's due the same day as 9/41. Close of the quarter. Last day of the month following close of the quarter. So when you do your student report, you also do your 9/41, and you better look and see if you've got what tax due. On a quarterly basis, you just have to look and take a scan. Your food up. You guys see if your food is over $500. So those are 3 things you have to do every quarter. Okay. So everybody feel comfortable with the excess wage calculation? I can really give you 3 things. One is somebody that's already capped before we ever get into this quarter. So his or her excess wages, they cap before they ever get into the quarter. His or her excess wages are what? All their wages. They're all over 32 grand a year. That's one kind of person. Or I can give you an employee that everything they've earned to date, plus what they earn this quarter, doesn't get them over 32 grand. Therefore, their excess wages are what? 0. Nothing's over 32,000. They're not there yet. Or somebody's going to actually straddle the 32,000 during this quarter. In which case, listen carefully, do you give me the wages up to $32,000 or the wages over $32,000? Over. Write the title, excess wages. Okay? Why do I give you the year-to-date wages? Is that incorporated in the number you put in excess wages? No, that's only to figure out whether they're under 32, over 32, or straddling it. The numbers we're worried about in the gross wage column and the excess wage column are only from the quarter, right? Because it's right in the title, quarterly wage report. You're not going to see year-to-date stuff on here at all, but I've got to give it to you so you know whether they're under, over, or straddling, right? And then I give you the rate, and you crunch that out. And I believe it goes in to, so total wages, gross wages, line 1, excess wages, everything over 32,000 for the quarter, line 2, difference is line 3, what am I paying tax on?
Line 4, I give you the rate, and then 5, 8, and 10. I'm not going to have any adjustments or penalties. I'm just going to keep it nice and easy. Okay. All good. This is a Meteor handbook. That first 5 pages were the FAQs. This is the full handbook with all of the information. The ones that I want you to look at, I've already talked about. What's the taxable wage base? What is it? 32,000. How do you know what your rate is? Pages 11 through 15. That's what I've already talked about. Should you review this? Sure. Okay, this is important. This is a very common misunderstanding around unemployment. I go to work at Plaza in May. I'm going to be their wrangler. I love horses. I go out there. I get the horses all prepped. I get the barn ready. We have customers all summer. Wrap up in the fall with a trail ride. And pretty much clients are gone by, probably still hunters are coming up there through October. But by end of hunting season, it's kind of game over, right? Now I'm going to claim unemployment for the winter against them, right? Wrong. I don't have enough of a claim history. If I go out to October and I get let go, right? If the claim was filed in October, okay, I have to go back a whole quarter. So July, August, September, don't count that. And then we count my wages for the 4 prior quarters. So I'm going all the way back to July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019. In the scenario I just described to you, how many months do I have in my base period? 2, May and June. So I might get a very small check from Plaza, but it also depends. If I quit a job prior to this to go work at Plaza, that may eradicate my ability to get unemployment completely. Are you with me? So going to work for somebody for 5 months, I mean, it may yield you a small check, but you're not going to be sitting back cashing a $480 a week check through the winter.
So if you had worked for them for a couple of years,
Yeah,
then
sure.
you have that gap.
Absolutely. Couple of years, you can see I've got full 4 quarter of earnings in the scenario you just painted. And if that's an interesting, Wrangler's, I don't know if they're checking or not. But I'm guessing they have a pretty good base wage. So they may be cashing a nice unemployment check over the winter.
But even though there's a gap, like say the first year you're not going to 3 months off, and then they go back to work, and then another 3 months. So there's a gap.
Oh, I see, repetitive, annualized. I would imagine that would impact the calculation of the check, but I don't honestly know that 100%. But it would have to, because when you go back and look at the claim period, you're not going to have to go all the full months of wages, are you? In any scenario.
What if you had 2 seasons off, where you pause up in summer and you scrape snow in winter? So you just kind of alternate it back and forth. Then
You're not going to get unemployment because you're working all the time.
But I mean, say, you pause up close so that you can't work that summer, but you've been doing that for 5 years.
Again, you really just go back to the chart and say, how many months did I work in the base period?
I think if your income drops down, like in your alternation between those 2 jobs, if you're transitioning between 3 hours a week versus 10 hours a week, you can receive some assistance.
Oh, absolutely, that's correct, Ben. And I don't know what the percentage is. Something in the back of my head tells me that if you drop down under half-time, 50%, does anybody know this number? That you're also eligible for partial unemployment. So I'm working full-time as an adjunct faculty here for 10 years, right? And then one day they're like, I'm sorry, you can only teach 2 classes a semester. You're now a 0.4 employee. I've got the right to partial unemployment. Is that what you're saying? Okay, so does everyone understand how to read this? So you don't choose any, so say I come back, say I get let go right now. Sorry, I'm gonna come back in the fall. What year and months are they gonna look at my wages to cut my unemployment check? What through what? January 18 through December 18, because I let go in April.
That makes sense.
So they don't count my wages now, they don't count my wages last quarter, they go back a full year. And it's like, oh, I worked full time, decent wage, I probably would max out my unemployment benefits. Okay, everyone get that? Okay, so you're the employer. This is something you have to manage. We just saw that a deficit employer is going to have SUTA rates up to 3 times that of a surplus employer. So believe me, it's something you want to manage in your business. It's going to be a big chunk of change. How do I do that? One way is managing. I mean, if I've got 5 people working for me, this isn't rocket science, but if I've got 5,000 people working for me in a, huge I'm 4 or something, 50,000 people working for me, I'm going to have a crew of people that do nothing but track this. And what happens is, say that you guys are 12 of 1,200 people that work for me, and I let 2 of you go. I'm going to get a potential charge notice from the state of Montana or wherever you're working that says these folks have filed an unemployment against you. And if I let you go because of lack of work, like that, we're actually back night shift, or our production's down 20%, I had to let go of 8% of my staff, as a bona fide reason, you were the newest hires, it's in compliance with our labor contract, I'm not going to do anything, I owe you unemployment. Right? So I'm not going to answer the potential charge notice. But if I let the 2 of you go because of incompetence, or you never came back from lunch break, or I suspect drug usage, or whatever, I'm gonna answer. I'm gonna return the notice with an appeal and say that's not what happened at all. I didn't cut the positions. It's not due to lack of work. It's one of those reasons I just said, or 100 different things. And then we might have to go through an appeal process. You've got rights. You have the right to get an attorney. I've got a right to appeal on my behalf. And it's important to both of us that you want the money, but I don't want to turn from into a deficit employer, right? I don't want you to claim against me if you don't have a right to. So I'm sure most of you having been in the work world have heard examples on both sides. People that kind of seems like they should have got it and didn't, but also people that abuse the system.
Does the dollar amount matter? Like if you lay off somebody with minimum wage or fired, sure, versus somebody making like 50,000.
Sure.
So that matters, like in that whole.
Sure, because if you were making $9 an hour and I was making 19 an hour, my unemployment checks are going to be a whole bunch larger than yours.
So, but that calculates in for also for the deficit.
Sure. Yeah.
So they're going to fight us harder if you're making 19.
Well, I mean, if from a policy perspective, you should just fight it, period. If they don't deserve it, they shouldn't be claiming again. I mean, that's just an abuse of the system. I'm sure, again, you all know a situation where somebody's maybe been claiming workers' comp where they really shouldn't be. Like, really, you're backcountry skiing, but you're on workers' comp for a knee injury? Like, that's not right. Okay, so and then you have to manage your potential charge notices with a really critical eye. And then state that the benefits paid every quarter, they'll tell you, like, yeah, Ben had a right to unemployment. We paid him $410 a week, and it took him 7 weeks to find a job. So they're going to reconcile what got paid on my account. Okay, when will your account be charged? There's really 3 situations. Well, first off, we just saw you have to pay wages in the claimant's base period, right? That was chart we just saw. And the reason the person left your employment is determined to be one of 3 things. What? Lack of work. Production's down, sales are down, shutting a branch, whatever. Quit for good cause attributable to or the fault of the employment. This one is very interesting because I'm sure most of you have heard you don't get unemployment if you quit, right? What's an example of quitting for good cause attributable to or the failure of the employment? What was the second one? Harassment would probably be a stronger example. Lack of training might be. I can't do my job because you didn't need the tools or the training. Harassment, misconduct by a supervisor, ethical dilemmas. You become pregnant and you're working at a place that has hazardous chemicals around. You know what I mean? It's something. It's not your fault. It's nobody's fault. But if you're going after unemployment on item number 2, only time I've ever gone after unemployment was a number 2, and you better have really great records. You better keep really good records because it'll go to appeal. I guarantee if you quit, your employer's going to appeal, and you better have compelling records. Wait, say that one more time.
They quit their job because their mother wasn't promoted. She got asked for promotion, filed unemployment, appealed the denial.
Did they didn't get it. So our example was myself and the chief scientific officer of a biotechnology firm that was vested with going around the country trying to raise $5 million of venture capital. So we spent a year of our lives doing that. We presented at venture capital symposiums all over the country. And we came back, the owner was a private guy from the UK. And they're not familiar at all with our model of venture capital. And when you get venture capital into a company, you have to give away 51% of your ownership. Because they want a compelling seat on the board to direct companies go. And I mean, we told them that. We're shopping this up, but you're going to need to give away 51% of the ownership. And we weren't, I mean, our butts off. I had a nice second baby while I was doing this, blah, blah, blah. And we came back and we're like, we've got 4 packages here. And he's like, I'm not giving away 50% of the ownership. It's like, I can't believe I just gave up a year of my life, right? And both the chief scientific officer and myself quit. But we had compelling documentation that it was, I mean, there was never going to be a win-win, you know, because he wasn't willing, but we had documented transcripts of how we had communicated with him. We had given 51% of ownership. We had the packages themselves showing they would provide the $5 million in funding, blah, 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 blah. It was not a pretty process, but we finally got unemployment. But, I mean, there's pretty narrow examples of that. And my mother did get promoted, probably not one of them.
So does that still count, like if you did that and then you went and got another job?
I did, that's when we moved here, and I got maybe, I think, 6 checks, and then I got a job as CFO on life insurance.
So they take it from whenever you started working.
Yeah. But then that gets tricky too, because that was Colorado, and I was living in Montana. So then you've got that interstate issue.
There's rules about that, aren't there? Like if you go to a new state, it has to be local work or.
Oh, yeah, that's, it was all just.
Is there that, like, there's a waiting period, isn't there? From the time you leave the job until you can file?
I don't remember that piece of it.
They can transfer
I don't remember, no, I don't think so. No, I think when I finally got the checks, it was from the day we tendered our resignation. But that may be different state to state.
I think there's a
Maybe it was, yeah, maybe it was.
I think there's a delay and then I think you're back paid.
I feel like when I did the math that I got paid from the day I think.
Well, I think they should, I mean, I think they have to go through to make sure you are qualified, and once you are qualified,
Then
then they back pay.
That's what I'm feeling like happened, but I couldn't be. And the other thing is make sure that like all this documentation isn't sitting on your company PC. Of course, we didn't have the cloud or anything like that. This is 26 years ago. Because obviously, the minute you tender a resignation, they give you the keys to your office, shut down your PC, et cetera. So you better have your stuff off-site. Okay. Or when's the last situation where an employer may be charged is if you discharge someone, you're not doing anything wrong, you're a perfectly competent worker, I like you, blah, 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 but my niece just graduated college and she's taking over my social media marketing position. Sorry. So it's not lack of work, but you're discharged for reasons not considered to be misconduct. Very importantly, what can you do to help reduce your unemployment insurance costs and avoid benefit overpayments? I can't stress this first one enough. You need to have somebody in your shop that is in charge of keeping an updated employee handbook. If you do not have somebody in the house that is competent and capable of keeping current with HR law and keeping your employee handbook current, you are just exposing yourself to litigation. You should get an outside consultant that can do that. Okay? It's very, very, very important. And secondly, that I've got really clear policies. If you don't show up for your shift, first time there's a warning, second time you're immediately expunged. For every 7 minutes you're late, or for every 10% variance on your till at night, or for every safety violation, here are the ramifications. And it's spelled out super crystal clear, and then that you apply legally. Not like, oh, I really like Warren, but I don't like Scott, so I cut Warren slack and I don't cut Scott any slack. That is not going to be your friend. You've got to document your personnel policies, and you need to apply them unequivocally. And I've dealt with this for years with students where people come with the saddest stories you can even imagine. Kids with cancer and parents dying. And I'm like, I have to keep a level playing field. I can't look at your individual situation. I can't look at whether I like you or not. That's completely irrelevant. Here's my playing field, and it is unilaterally level. And most students will understand that. They get that. Everybody likes that idea of taking the objectivity out of it. No, taking the subjectivity out of it. Remaining objective. Consistent application of rules. Okay, and then we've already talked about this, responding to DUI with any documentation, responding to the potential charge notice, initial determination, if you've got court hearings or arbitration appeals, obviously you need to be prepared for those, et cetera, et cetera. Oop. Oh, there's that again. Okay, now here is for your extra credit for item number 3, assignment number 3, and I'll go pull that up in a second, but it refers you to a series of letters, and no, I did not write these. I am not this clever to come up with a Queen High Dudette Ranch and be fair a Philly. But these are 3 letters, and it even says down in the bottom right-hand corner, extra credit number 3. So here's a letter. You don't have to respond to all of these. You're going to choose one, and I'll show you the assignment in a second. Here's the second letter, extra credit number 3. Here's the third letter, extra credit number 3. And here's the fourth letter. And this one, you have to also pay attention to the potential charge notice on the next page. So the last one goes, just I penciled it in. And here's what a potential charge notice looks like. It comes from the state of Montana, right, DOLI. And again, this is all clever, Linda Lasso. And it tells you the situation whereby Linda Lasso is claiming unemployment against your ranch. So in conjunction with that former letter, you're responding to them as to whether you agree with what Linda Lasso has shared or not. And I'll show you again just a second, just a second. But you are writing the letter. You are an employee of these guys. Right, so that's your inside heading, obviously.
Is there a separate attachment for these items? Because I was noticing that section 3 is like some notes or something like that.
No, these are on page whatever we're on. 44. Looks like 40, 41, no, 41, 42, 43, 44, and 45 roughly. Okay, let me pull this down for just a sec. How can I do that without backing out? I don't know that I can. Okay, let me just go bring up the assignment so you can, assignment number 3, so you can see that.
Okay, so I say extra credit optional in the DOR, DOLI section of the Montana Payroll Handbook. Series of letters from FARA Philly to the DOLI. Respond to FARA on behalf of the UI division in letter format. The last thing you wrote for me was a memo. This, which doesn't have a signature line, doesn't have a, dear whatever line, what that's called formally. But letters do. Letters are not the same format as memos. So this is in letter format. Answer any questions she might have, clarify any misunderstandings, and explain any issues. And you might use the handbook that I provided you. You might go to the DOLI website. I mean, you need to respond as a current employee of the DOLI. Okay? The points allocated to your letter will be 7 points for substance and 3 points for writing. So again, please review your writing. Some people just don't seem to like commas very much. It makes reading stuff very difficult. Don't forget an introduction and a concluding paragraph. Okay? All right, let me go back and finish off this section, and then we'll spend some time getting up to speed on assignment number 2. The last thing that I want to talk to you about out of this section doesn't really have anything to do with DOLI or DOR, I just didn't know where to put it. Anybody remember what this is all about? Yeah, what's this?
Just like for our children's day, so it's guest.
Oh, we've talked about this a couple times. It's reporting all new hires, and it's fed into that main database for the Office of Child Support Enforcement, the OCSE, in Washington, D.C. And it liaises people that are deficient in their in their child support payments, and with those who are now working and earning wages. So this is super easy, but you have to comply with it. You have 30 days. Here's the information. 20 days, I guess. Sorry, I thought it was 30. Read through the instructions. You can either fill out this form, but why would I fill out a form when I could just take a picture of their W-2 and send it? I'm sorry, W-4 and send it. Tells their name, their address, their social. That's really all they want. Okay, so new hire reporting form. It's incorporated in the Personal Work Opportunity and Responsibility Reconciliation Act that Clinton passed in '96, which is essentially what we call welfare reform. But it's instituted at the state level. So you have to comply with Montana's state law around it. Okay. Preguntas? Questions? No. Okay. My son went to see Beto O'Rourke yesterday in Washington, D.C. at a town hall, and he delivered his town hall opening speech in English and then turned around and delivered it in Spanish. And evidently also speaks a little Swahili. It's like, wow, who knew that? So kind of fun. Huh? English, Spanish, and a little Swahili. Obviously, it was probably like a Peace Corps volunteer or something at some point. Having been to East Africa, I can tell you Swahili is not intuitive. All right, let's take a look. Did you guys look at assignment number 2?
Not yet, no.
Why don't you pull it up and tell me, and I'll just give you a couple minutes to read through it, and then make sure that everybody kind of understands where we're going with it. So it's in section 5, assignment number 2, and there's 3 attachments to it.
So, I'm asking you to do three things, right? You're basically doing all of the state, state reporting. So obviously there's 11 employees, I say over and over and over, it's a bi-weekly pay period, the quarter we're gonna have 7 payrolls. This is right from your W-4s, right, married, with how many allowances, or single, with how many allowances. This is how much they make every pay period. So every time they get paid, that's their paycheck. So you can calculate quarterly wages pretty easy from there, right? Then I give you their year-to-date wages before today, and you know why you need that. And their social security number, obviously that goes on the unemployment insurance report. Then I give you, we're in the third quarter, and I plug in the number for the other 3 quarters. You can look up their SIT for one pay period based on this. Right, you just go to the tables and look it up. And we'll do the first one before we do. So then I've got my SIT for one paycheck, I multiply that by 7, that's my quarters. I take my earnings per pay period, multiply by 7, that's my gross earnings for the third quarter. I add all those together. I add all that together, and that's my annual wages. Directions. Complete an MW1 for the first payroll period of the third quarter. What's an MW1 again? The deposit, right? The coupon. So for the whole quarter or for one paycheck? One paycheck. Complete an MW1 for the first payroll period of the third quarter. Wilma is an accelerated filer, meaning they have 3 days to get to the bank, and so must deposit each pay period. Clear? Complete the UI5. That's what we practiced on the board on Tuesday. That's for just a quarter, right? And then lastly, complete the MW3. What's that for? The W-2, so that's for the what time period? The whole year. And then here's the forms. Here's the MW1. Here's the MW3, that's up in the corner. And I think I told you I'm not going to require you to write down all the payrolls. That's just busy work. And here is the UI5. And I've got their rate pre-printed up in the corner and the annual taxable wage base. So that's what you're handing in. Also, number 3, if you want extra credit. So I think now, just for giggles, make sure everybody knows how to do that, please go do 2 things with Moran. I want his per paycheck SIT, and then his quarterly SIT. William Moran.
Oh, oh my God, I thought you said William. I was like, what? It's William.
Oh, William Moran.
So did you want the weekly?
I want the SIT for one payroll and then the quarterly SIT.
So you want to fund SIT and what else?
For one payroll and then for the quarter.
Oh,
You want the, so you want the SIP for the quarter.
I want the SIT for him for one payroll and for the quarter.
That's for the first quarter. Are we doing the first quarter?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. Just a sec, I can't hear Josh. Go ahead.
So I'm having a brain fart. Year-to-date wages, you only do SIT based off up to the 32,000.
No, that's SUDA. SIT doesn't, income tax doesn't have a cap. Income tax never has a cap, does it? If I make $5 million a year, I pay income tax on all that.
So where's this chart?
It's in, where is it? Section 3. And again, make sure you've got your resources organized for the final. Ugh. Where am I? Married with 2 bi-weekly. Right, for one payroll? And so for the quarter, how much, times what?
7.
That's that.
1106. Those math skills.
I grew up without a calculator, I'm that old.
I grew up without a calculator. 90s, we didn't, I guess.
Oh my God, of course you grew up with a calculator.
Is that like tracking calculator?
Oh my God.
Stuff it was for you.
I was a child.
Okay, did you get this?
Yeah.
Yeah, you heard me, you probably grew up with a smartphone.
Or,
Cell
you have
phone.
one?
The parents said, let you have one, good on that. True story, now I'll let you go, my dad was a construction company, and he had his office in the basement, he had, the old fashioned green, kind of like accounting paper, it's called the little lines, ledger paper. Because we didn't have calculators when I was a little girl, he would go down a column of numbers in his head, when he was like bidding and stuff. I remember that to this day. And so I picked that skill up, and my first boyfriend in college, we would go grocery shopping, and I'd be like, $36.29 as she was ringing it up before she said it. That's amazing, do that again. I learned that from my dad, and he did that calculator, what do you do?
You know what Asian Marine is?
Do I know her better?
Asian Marine used to be.
Yeah.
They look at it, come up and there's a run, and that's still,
Love. Love. Love it. Absolutely love it. It's old school, but you know what? If something works like that, I still got a client who brings me from Albertson a big box of all his receipts. And I'm like, you don't want me to spend my hourly rate going through that. Just put it all together for me. Anyways, it's sweet. Okay, do you feel like you know what you're doing for assignment number 2? Yes. And assignment number 3? On Tuesday, we will talk about workers' comp, and then we'll probably roll through that assignment together on Tuesday. So actually, let me give you something else for Tuesday. Can you please print this out? Let me go back one more time, because then that way you don't have to worry about really anything past that. So also for Tuesday, in addition to handing in assignments 2 and 3, print out assignment number 4 and then the 2 pages following. Just to bring those in. 3 pages. 5 pages. Okay. Happy weekend. Happy Easter. Or Passover. Or whatever you do. Or don't do.
Gorge myself on food.
Oh God, I'm so excited.
What's Friday?